Hey there! This video is going out to my general audience, but from this moment forward, it is wholeheartedly dedicated to my father, specifically for his birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you heaps.
Happy birthday, Judah.
And naturally, for your birthday, I'm subjecting you to a good old-fashioned ramble sesh. You're welcome in advance. Today, I thought it might be fun to dive into detail regarding the hyperfixation that's had me by the balls for about 5 years now. This is Dead by Daylight, the game I've mentioned to you each occasion I possibly can, and the one responsible for siphoning half of my free time and a slim yet deservingly shameful portion of all money I have ever been given. And I want to show you why. There's a lot to love, a lot I have to say, and I pinky promise that this won't be boring. Thanks. Let's get started. At the risk of sounding like this guy,
Well, it's real simple. Basically, there's 3 grabbers, 3 taggers, 5 twig runners, and the player at whack-bat.
I'll try to keep the basic overview short and simple. Dead by Daylight, henceforth referred to as DbD, is an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, meaning that unlike standard multiplayer games with balanced team sizes, DbD is 1 versus 4, 1 killer versus 4 survivors. When you start a match, you'll load into one of the game's many different maps, each with their own quirks, layouts, and aesthetics. The goal of the killer is to find, chase, and down the survivors, then place them onto one of the many sacrificial hooks that spawn around the map. Each survivor has to be hooked about 3 times before they die, but there's a timer that runs down while they're on the hook, forcing other survivors to go and rescue them. The goal of the survivors is to repair 5 of the 8 generators that spawn around the map, all the while making efforts to protect their teammates and survive in chase. Once all the generators are complete, the survivors then have to make their way to the exit gates, open them, and leave. Alright, I kinda ended up sounding like this guy anyways, but who cares? It's simple enough on paper, and yet this game gets so wildly complicated once you start to unpack any one of its mechanics. Part of what makes this game so engaging and enjoyable for me is the depth of it all. You will never stop learning things about this game. There is too much. To give you an example, let's talk about what survivors have to work with in order to be effective in chase. Chasing, or looping, a name attributed due to the ring around the rosy style of gameplay, is an art form that takes a surprising amount of time to master. All around the map, there'll be certain structures and obstacles to play around, but the 2 most important for survivors are windows and pallets. Windows can be navigated through by vaulting, and by default, survivors vault windows much faster than killers can. Pallets, on the other hand, are the real meat of the loop. See this shit heap scrap of wood? Yeah, so if you're comparing DbD to other multiplayer games, this lumber vomit is the equivalent to staring down the barrel of a gun. Survivors can drop pallets. If they drop them on a killer, the killer gets stunned. Pallets, like windows, can be vaulted by the survivors, but not by the killer. Instead, it forces them to take time to break it, which in turn gives the survivor more distance. Now, let me just set the scene. Here's the crazy thing. What happens when you're on one side of a pallet and they're on the other? The answer is only decided in the next split second. Every pallet is Schrodinger's pallet. If the killer thinks you're gonna drop a pallet, they obviously don't want to get stunned, so they might stop. We call this respecting the pallet. And if they respect it enough, they lose the momentum in their movement, and it gives you another run out of the loop, which in the long term means your teammates have more time to complete objectives. However, if the killer just walks right through it, then you get probed with a rusty machete. Bummer. There's always plenty of gambling in chase, and you're always trying to get a read on your opponents and what type of habits they play with. And if they're unreadable, then you can create a habit. Check this shit out. So right here, I'm playing Survivor, and I'm playing against Wesker, who is a killer that can dash quickly up to 2 times. The way you can tell that he's about to dash is he'll do a little chuckle and pull his, well, there's no simple way to say that. He pulls his tentacle out. Right here, around this corner, I can hear that he's about to dash, so I dodge him, and later in chase, I'm in position to dodge again. But I assume that this Wesker knows what he's doing, and he's played very precisely so far, so I can safely make that assumption. So I stare at him directly, and don't dodge, while he goes wide, thinking I will. Ultimately, me not dodging here meant that he left me, I could safely heal myself, and the rest of my team just died because they're worse at the game than me, and that's okay. I'm just being honest. That's what happened. Shame about that. Sure, they might not fall for it, and sure, they might be aware that you're trying to trick them, so you might just have to adjust your approach to stay unpredictable. That's the fun part. The what ifs, the hypotheticals. You know what I'm saying? Tony, get the boulder. Hey, oh.
Fuck you, Santa.
Sorry, I had to do Sopranos. So in just this one example, it's pretty clear that at any given time in Chase, there's plenty of mind games to play. But that would be a gross understatement. One more quick example on the killer side of things. So, in front of the killer, there's this big old red blotch. This blotch represents their field of view, the direction that they're currently looking. If you see the red blotch, the killer is right there, presumably. However, if the killer walks backwards or moonwalks around a corner, it hides the stain, meaning it increases your chance of getting the hit. The mind games, the gambling, the chance, there's way too much to get into. It's a very complex game, but I find it to be a great balance of skill and luck. Is it perfect? Absolutely fucking not. No, not in a million years. But it's great. It's fun. Alright, now I'm gonna have to ask you to kindly look at this real fast. This is the Death Slinger. He's one of the many killers in the game, and like all the other killers, he has a power, a specific set of strengths and weaknesses to make the match more interesting. So look, remember how I said that this one scrap heap was like this game's equivalent to staring down a gun barrel in Call of Duty or some shit? Well, that analogy falls apart the singular second you make the survivor stare down an actual gun barrel.
You sure that's him?
Yeah,
Positive?
I don't know.
You don't know if you're positive?
I don't know what positive means.
Means you're sure.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, I'm sure that's Ellis Brittle.
All the killers in the game have their own unique way to play around loops and win the chase, meaning that everything I just told you does not apply in the slightest to the killer that can teleport through the fucking wall. And if that sounds overpowered, it sure is. And some of these powers add such incredible depth to the match and change the survivor player's behavior around loops entirely. Blight is a killer that moves quickly, but with a restricted turn rate to his movement, meaning you have to bump and slide off of objects rapidly in order to position yourself for a hit. Wesker can dash at survivors to grab them, and every time he does, the survivor gets infected, meaning that they have to take time away from doing generators to go cure it, or else they'll be in big trouble later. Huntress just throws fucking hatchets at people. That's it, and that's really all you need in your life. These are 4 out of 38 killers in the game right now, with a new one typically releasing every 3 months. There is so much to master, both playing against a killer and playing the killer themselves. It can't be understated how infinite the skill ceiling is here. If there's any type of game that's gonna get people to play for over 10,000 hours, it's this one. And maybe chess, I don't know. And holy man, let me tell you something. The people who play killer, like, no, really play killer. People who devote time and research and calculated effort just to play one of these specific characters as best as they possibly can are fascinating. Guide videos that are hours upon hours long, assembled just to help other players improve. Countless techniques and abilities specific to each killer, some of which are still being discovered and others that are so ridiculously tough to pull off, and yet are the deciding factor between a victory and a loss. These players, the people who find this shit out and then perfect it, are why I play Dead by Daylight. But I gotta come clean here. It ain't all sunshine. In fact, it is predominantly not sunshine. DbD has some problems. It overcomplicates itself frequently, and occasionally the developers fumble the bag. On top of that, it's got a bad reputation in certain circles for all sorts of reasons, but mostly for being full of programming bugs and frustration. Houston, we have a problem? Houston, we have a problem? And yet, I still love this game. The depth, the heart, the absolute brain power that you can't help but pour into it. It's incredible. It's good because it's imperfect, and it's imperfect partly because the developers would rather try new things than stay stagnant. A few days ago, after a while of amassing critical, game-breaking, and fun-ruining bugs, the developers have decided to postpone some recent releases in order to try and keep the game healthy and address these problems. That's why I love it. I love it because in spite of every mounting imperfection and blemish on this game's face, she's still the prom queen, and people are still passionate about it. We did not go over everything. I think you'll be very pleased to know that, actually. But I really wanted to help you understand why I can't shut up about this game sometimes. It scratches the itch. Can't help it, brother. And it was fun to put together just a few reasons why I like it. I know there's still a lot that probably doesn't make sense to you, and that's okay. I don't know, I thought it'd be fun, and it was fun. So, I truly hope that you enjoyed this little adventure, and I hope you know that I love you, Dad. I love you heaps. And I hope breakfast was good, and that you enjoy the spatulas. Hugs and kisses, mate. Have a lovely birthday.